Hi, everyone. Stephanie here with Vegan Mainstream, and we are at Webinar Wednesday. I'm so excited that you decided to join us tonight. Whether you're watching us live or if you're watching the replay, I'm glad you are here. And today's webinar is about building your team. The reason I wanted to talk about this is for many of you out there, maybe you're solopreneurs and you're thinking about bringing on some individuals to maybe help you out. Maybe some of you have a partner or maybe have someone who's been helping you with a few different tasks. And what you're thinking is maybe it's time for me to expand. Maybe I need to explore having more people on my team so I can get more done. But the challenge is always, as us being small business owners, as us really juggling so much on our plate, the challenge is how do you do it? Who do you hire? And how do we do it in a reasonable budget so that you can really do it as your business grows? And tonight, that's a lot of what we're going to talk about. We're really going to be kind of digging into the options, the approach, and the way that maybe you should be thinking about hiring someone if you're thinking about building your team. Because at the end of the day, while we all try to do it all, especially as business owners, as entrepreneurs, sometimes you need a little bit of help. And when you need a little bit of help, we have to understand that sometimes when you find the right people, they can make you move forward faster. So some of you out there are like, I'm thinking about bringing somebody on, but I'm not sure. The idea is to think about building a team as a way to propel you forward, not just a way to get like the annoying task off your list, but it should be really designed as a opportunity or a way for you to seize an opportunity if you are bringing people into the team. So whether you're bootstrapping, whether you're expanding, we always have to be smart about it. And when you're thinking about moving forward, I really recommend that you start with two options, either bringing people on from a part-time standpoint or from a freelance approach. Now, for some of you, when you hear the word freelance, you're like, really? Why would I bring on a freelancer? Wouldn't I bring on someone part-time or full-time and bring someone on and have them really kind of be a jack of all trades and do everything? And I highly recommend not doing that. Having someone a jack of all trades is really not a business strategy. It's not a hiring strategy. It's very difficult to hire you. And we'll talk a little bit more about it because you come from a very different perspective, different background, different passion. So finding someone like you is very, very hard that can maybe do a ton of things. Also, remember, we're trying to hire someone to seize an opportunity to move things forward. So often my recommendation is find someone who's an expert in the thing that you're looking for. And often by looking at freelancers, you'll be able to hire someone who's really, really, really good at a specific thing. That's also going to help us from a budgeting standpoint because instead of hiring someone who's going to have to figure out how to juggle all these different hats, you can have someone a little bit targeted, a little bit focused, and we can get them to deliver on something specific. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. I just wanted to plant that seed early on that for many of you, I'm really going to recommend going for freelancers first and then potentially looking at maybe converting a freelancer into a part-time or full-time opportunity. When you really get amazing people, you really can bring them on and turn that into a long-lasting relationship. Because at the end of the day, what we're trying to build is a team. You're not just trying to hire people to get a little bit of help here and there. That is or can potentially be a short-sighted approach if you just kind of say, I need somebody who can just figure this out real quick. And while, under the pressure, under the strain, I understand why many of us do that. And honestly, I've done that before. But the reality is you want someone who can feel like they're part of the team, even if it's someone who works every now and then. It doesn't mean it's someone who works on a project every week for you. This can be someone who you work with for a month or 2 months, and then they don't work with you for a couple of months and then they come back on. So maybe they work with you 3 or 4 times a year. This can be a person that works on a 2-month project heavy every single day, every single week, and then things go quiet. This can be a person who's a surge resource for you. So when another resource is too busy or not able to get through things, they're the backup. You can structure your business and your team in a way that works for your business. So I think sometimes we think too conventional when we're thinking about hiring a team. We think of it from a standpoint of we must hire people to fill these slots. Instead, I really want you to think about bringing people in to build a group or an organization of people around you that can truly help you achieve some things really specific, and someone that is coming into your dream. Remember, they're coming into your passion. This is a business that you care about. And we want to make sure we're bringing people in that are truly team member quality, and not bringing in people that are not going to help you take the mission and so forth forward. So maybe I've got you all fired up. You're like, okay, Steph, I'm ready. I'm thinking about a team environment. I'm not just thinking the idea that I got to hire a quick virtual assistant just to get some work done. And not that there's anything wrong with hiring someone to be a virtual assistant, but I don't want you to take a quickie, short-sighted approach. I really want you to think about the impact of your business. So one thing I want you to think about is before you hire, I want to make sure you understand that if you really have a need. And what I mean by that is sometimes we get sucked into the appearance of things. Meaning, if we have a business, if we have a strong, stable business, it means we would have a team. We would have somebody in HR, someone in marketing, we'd have someone in operations, we have someone in finance. And what happens is we start to build ourselves like a mini corporation. And while that's exciting, and while on paper and even in discussions, it may sound like it has the prestige that you're looking for your business, the reality is we're not here to put people in boxes, put them in roles. What you really want to do from your business is hire people based on the fact that you actually need them to do specific work that is going to really impact your business. So therefore, instead of hiring people based on positions or groupings or categories or departments, what I want you to understand is what is the need you have and what kind of impact could a team member have? Could they help you achieve what? Is it reaching new customers? Is it around customer service because you're getting a lot of emails and questions about the product and you need someone to field those questions to ensure that customers are not waiting for responses? That's a real issue to solve for. As opposed to saying, well, I've always thought I need someone to run my finances and manage my budget, so I'm going to bring somebody on for that. That's a little bit different. And I really want you to always have a true purpose when you're bringing someone on. The other thing is you got to make sure you can afford it. And what I mean by that is you really need a separate budget for hiring people. The reason being is every hire is not going to be the perfect hire. And what that means is there's going to be an investment made in this process. You may hire 1, 2, maybe even 3 people before you find the right mix. Sometimes you'll get lucky and you'll find the right person the first time or the second time, but sometimes it's going to take a little bit of time. You may find someone, they work out for a little while, and then maybe it's not so ideal down the line. Those are going to be investment of money. That's an investment that you're going to be making in finding the right person, and you have to be able to absorb that investment. What I want to make sure is that you're not thinking that I'm going to bring someone on, then we're going to make some money from this project, and then from that project, I'm going to pay the person that helped me make that money. Timing doesn't always work that way in a business. Getting someone in your business, getting them onboarded, getting them comfortable with what you do, how you do it, and so forth can take a couple of weeks. And during that time, they are truly an expense. They may not be working at peak performance. They may be not at the level where they're able to bring in the revenue, bring in the results you're expecting. So we have to make sure you can afford those few weeks of bringing somebody up to speed. Maybe if it's in 30 days or 45 days before a person is going to be able to yield the results that you're expecting once they fully kind of transition into the role. And then the last thing is you have to make sure this position will pay off. And what I mean by that is make sure you've done the analysis and identified, is this an actual opportunity? Are you bringing on this person because they have a direct way of impacting revenue, helping you seize opportunities, not just concepts, but opportunities that can be really linked to revenue. Now, for some of us, it's maybe not a revenue game. It's finding someone who can help you save. What they do is they go through your system, they go through your processes, and they help you save on resources. Maybe they help you reduce the amount of inventory that you need in your business. Maybe you're in a service based business and they go through your website and they help you cut down on clicks or cut down on load times. Things like that can help you drive additional revenue, but can also save you money. Maybe they're helping you with from a financial standpoint, looking at your budgeting and trying to find out if there's a way that if you move from monthly charges to annual charges, you'll be able to save 10 or 20% per year on the services that you are currently paying for. That's another way a person can come into your business and help you reduce costs. And then the third thing is maybe this is someone that helps you save time. And when I say you, meaning you as the business owner, you're very invaluable. And at a certain point, you have an hourly rate in your business that's often pretty sizable. So therefore, when you think about bringing someone on, we have to be able to say, does that person save you time? And I don't mean one-to-one time. I don't mean, well, I don't have to do that activity, so yes, it saves me time. What you really want to do is bring someone on who maybe can do something that would normally take you longer because you're wearing a hat that's maybe not your optimal hat, and they can do it faster. So maybe you're not amazing writer. You're great on concept, getting it down on paper, but getting it to that polished level, you need an editor. So what happens is by hiring an editor, you can write faster, get content out there, and your editor can massage the content, massage the wording, and get it to the level that you need to get it to start publishing. And therefore, now what happens is you're bringing on someone who's helping you elevate, produce faster, and really kind of get to the level that you want it to be at quicker, easier, and more efficient for your business. So I really want someone to come into your organization and streamline things, not just someone who takes a task off your plate. So now you're talking about hiring, and the biggest thing is there's a couple of myths. A lot of people think when it's time to hire, they're like, that means I got to send things overseas because things are so expensive. People in the US, their hourly rates are very high. Can I afford it? And the truth is, that's not the case. You really can find people in the US if you do want to have someone here locally. You may have to look at people who are maybe more entry level or mid level positions if you're trying to keep the costs down. Sometimes there's a benefit of hiring somebody who is more advanced because they can do things faster. So you also have to kind of identify what type of task it is. And is it a task that if you had someone with more skill and they could do it faster, would the net amount of money that you would pay out be about the same? The other thing is to consider is while you can outsource some work, it doesn't always mean you have to outsource it overseas. You have to outsource it to countries where people are in a completely different time zone than you. You can outsource to Canada. You can outsource to South America. There's a ton of places that would be in the same time zone as you that may have slightly better rates or more economical rates, or really just might give you more options. That there are plenty of people who are English speaking, so you don't have any language barriers or anything like that in many countries that are in our time zone. So don't really assume that you have to make a sacrifice if you're starting to do some outsourcing. You can truly find the people you need in your business. The other thing is, hiring people is not a dump it and forget it thing. You really can't just hire people and ultimately say, here, go do it, get it done, just bring back the results. You still have to manage them. Someone has to ensure that they're doing what you expect them to do. And more importantly, you need someone to ensure you're coaching, you're guiding, you're helping people get the most out of your position. Because often what I find is a lot of people kind of flounder in positions because they don't have the oversight, they don't have the guidance, they don't have the coaching, they don't know your business like you do. So you have to help them get to a point where they can operate, make decisions, feel comfortable. And a lot of that means that there is going to be some work that you're going to do. The other thing is it's not always about saving money. Sometimes it's about saving time. So sometimes you may hire someone, like I mentioned earlier, with a little bit more experience so you can save that time. And like I mentioned earlier, be careful. It's very hard to find someone like you. Instead, I want you to hire people based on their expertise as opposed to trying to find a person like you. The other thing is you have to understand your role. As you start to outsource, as you start to give someone else some of your responsibilities, what it means is you are still the boss. You still have to create a sense of accountability. You have to work on communication, sending things out, creating structure, creating timelines, deliverables. You really are still going to be responsible for ongoing training. Because if you want a person to get better, get stronger, get to produce more out of their position, someone has to be looking out for them to ensure that they can get stronger, get better. Um, Working in isolation can be very, very difficult for anyone. So, if you're bringing someone on, you don't want them to have that isolated feeling because, in the end of the day, they need support. They need to know what's working well, what isn't working well, what they should repeat, what should they try differently. Also, they need the encouragement sometime to take a leap, take a risk, try new things. And without interacting with you, hearing from you what's working well, and so forth, sometimes people will take a moderate approach to a role because they want to please you. And if they aren't knowing that you're interested in them trying new things, testing new things out, or if they don't know that they have the authority to do certain types of approaches or try to do things that maybe the initial role did not include, then what'll happen is they'll stay in the box that you set originally in the position. And the reality is you want people to soar. You want people to get to a point where they're really able to pull out all of these amazing skills and apply them to your business. And the way to do that is to make sure that you become that mentor for them. You become that boss that really helps them achieve more in your business. So as you're thinking about, okay, you get your role, you understand what you're doing. Now we got to figure out what are we going to assign to your team members? Because the reality is everything can't be outsourced and everything can't be in the hand. Every projects need to be in the hands of the right people, I guess is the best way to say it. So therefore, when you think about the type of work to outsource, when you think about hiring someone, what you really want to do is make sure you have clean tasks that have start and stop points. You want things that are repeatable, something that a person can do more than once. And I don't mean the exact repetitive nature of a task, but something that can be optimized over time. Because if a person is doing something similar over and over, what they can do is help you identify ways to get faster, ways to do things better. And think of it from the standpoint like answering or responding to customer service emails. Often you will get similar email requests. Often you'll get similar questions. So one way to optimize that is to sit down and say, what are my most common responses that I get from people in customer service? And maybe what a person will do is they'll write up some of those common answers, create an FAQ page on your website so those common questions can be answered on the website without people emailing you. So it's a way to be a little more proactive. Another way to do it is when a person maybe emails you to your support email, they get an automatic email that actually says, hey, here's the answer to some common questions that you may have. While we're looking at your email and we're going to get back to you, check out these answers in case this helps you or get you on your way. So that's what I mean. It's really ensuring that a person can take what they do and they can get leverage for you. So you can start to get more out of what they do and they can make a bigger impact. The other thing is I like to really split up types of tasks between which ones I really love in more of a freelance position versus tasks that I see more in a part-time role. Now, a lot of things can go in freelance, especially depending on the candidate that you hire. But often I see things like accounting, website work and coding, design work, editing, customer service, maybe managing a specific marketing campaign. Great, great, great work for a freelancer. On the part time side, what I often see is this is someone who's maybe going to be doing some of your marketing tasks, running your social media account, and so forth. Because you need someone a little bit closer to the organization. You need someone who really understands how the organization operates and is going to be able to work with you maybe on a weekly basis. Because the way that social media works, as an example, you need someone who can touch base with you, talk to you, make changes, and also interject the company brand in social media, as an example. Part-time people or maybe people who are going to help with sales, also maybe with product development. So what I want you to do is, as you're thinking about hiring people, really start to understand what are some of those roles that will fit well in a freelancing opportunity, as well as think about project, especially for the first scope, is think about something that's more project based, something that it may be a 2 week project, maybe a 1 day project, but something that has that strong, tight start and finish. Not because you don't need someone for the long haul. You definitely need someone for the long haul. But what I like to do is hire people for a really specific amount of time first, because when I hire them for a specific amount of time and they're able to deliver, I can quickly evaluate how they did. I can quickly see if there's any challenges or if this is an amazing candidate because they've been able to deliver on something. Also, because it's a tighter project, most people feel more comfortable working on those projects and showing and flexing their skills. They're able to focus instead of trying to learn everything about your business and everything about the position. They're really learning what is needed for that project. And also, if it doesn't work out, then you've only invested a day, you've only invested a week or two. You haven't invested 3 or 6 months down the line of having someone in place and not really being able to identify if they're the right fit or the right candidate. All right. So now you're ready to go. Now you're ready to hire people. What I want you to do is understand what's the process, what's the flow. And the reality is, not only do we need to make sure we understand what the need is and how long you would need help for this role, is this something that is of truly ongoing opportunity? But let's think through what are some of the requirements. I think a lot of times what we think about is what we want done, what that result is, but we don't always think about, well, what skills do we think a person really needs? And what skills do I need them to bring to my organization based on who I am, based on how I run my business, or based on the current team that you have in place? Also, consider your budget. Consider not only your annual budget, but maybe a weekly or monthly budget. And start to think about maybe bringing someone in to make sure they fit into the budget of where your business is today. Once you figure that out, that's when you start to look at the search. That's when you're doing searches, doing interviews, doing the test run that I mentioned about, maybe a 1 day project or a 2 hour project, something really short. Then giving feedback to that individual. If that individual is starting to work out, it looks like it's great, then what I do is I start to add tools to their plate. I may bring them into my project management tool. I may set them up on some of my password protection tools and so forth. So they're easy so they can access certain accounts and so forth. Then what I do is I start to go into a smaller project. So if my first test run was a day or a 2 day or a 2 hour project, then my small project may be a week or a 2 week project. I give them feedback again to see how that works. And then I bring them into the ongoing opportunity, maybe the opportunity where they will be working with me on a consistent basis every week, or working with me consistent every 2 months when we roll out a project or a campaign. So I really recommend using this approach because it's a great way for you to really ensure that you're hiring the best candidate for your business. Now, when you're looking for a candidate, how do you screen? How do you find the right people? And a lot of times it has to do with not just putting a description in the job. What I like to do is put what are some of the deliverables that I expect out of the role. And the reason I put that in the job description is because it makes it much easier once I bring someone in to evaluate them against those same deliverables. Because if I just give a general description, general saying of what a person's going to do, then I have to do that hard work of explaining to them what my expectations are, and there may be a mixed match at that point. They might have thought the role was A, and I'm actually describing B or C at this point. So instead, to cut down on that kind of miscommunication, I like to put my deliverables up front in the description because it allows people to know exactly what I expect out of the role. Not a general idea of, yes, I want to hire someone as a virtual assistant, but I really want to say, these are the 5 or 6 tasks that I see you completing on a weekly, daily, or monthly basis. The other thing I like to do is I always ask candidates to explain why they think they're an ideal fit for the position in a cover letter. The reason being is it keeps you from getting just standard resume after resume, and it allows you to get a little bit more personality from a person. What are they interested in? Why are they applying for this position, as well as gives them an opportunity to tell you a little bit about who they are and why they think they're the perfect fit. So I find it's a great way. A cover letter doesn't have to be long. It can be a half a page, a couple paragraphs. So we're not asking them to tell us their life story. What you're doing instead is really asking them to really help you understand why they believe you should choose them. Often I'll draft interview questions in advance. The reason I like to have interview questions is if I'm interviewing multiple people, I want to make sure I ask the same questions between everyone, if so it makes it easier for me to evaluate them. And like I mentioned before, assign them with a short project when you first start. Maybe you're going to have 2 people go through a trial run. I will often tell people that, hey, I found 2 people. I think you guys are great. What I'd like to do is go through a quick trial run. I'd like to give you a quick small project and see how you do and make sure it's a good fit. Because the reality is you want it to be both ways. You want people who want to work for you and you want people that you want to work for you. So to create that environment, I like to be transparent and upfront. And I really use this as a great way for us to determine if a person is truly a good fit. Not just can they deliver on the work, but is it a good fit? Because we all have different personalities, different perspectives, and different approaches. And it's important to iron that stuff out early on. Now, while we're talking about hiring people, bringing on a candidate, what I also want you to do is not just see it as an individual coming in, but really think about the fact that you may be building a virtual team. Now, for some of you, you may be hiring people locally. You may be hiring someone to work in a local office or retail store. But for many businesses, as we get more lean, as many of our business, we do a lot more online businesses or online marketing, or we have a small team that maybe works on our manufacturing side, but kind of our back office team can be virtual. What I want you to think about is bringing on people and bringing them into a team environment and setting it up so that you can have a team that operates and works well together. And a lot of that has to do with the structure that you put in place. And normally I like to have these 4 different pillars in place as I'm building a virtual team. Now, when I use the word team, for some people, you may be a little bit nervous because you're like, wait a minute, I'm not trying to hire a ton of people, Stephanie. What are we talking about when we call a team? And a team really is just more than one person. So even if you bring on one person, I highly recommend setting up the structure, because if you bring on one more person, now it's a 3-person team. This tool, this approach, this way of managing is going to work as you expand, and it works very well in small teams, especially when people aren't in the same location. The other thing is when you're hiring people, maybe from a freelance standpoint, often you're going to allow them to complete the work during the hours and the time that they like. So while they may have a certain level of overlap with you, so you guys can have some conversation and so forth, some people will work better at night, some people work better in the morning, some people, have other obligations because you're only having them work maybe 2 hours a week or 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week. So what happens is, because of that, those hours may be on a Monday, Tuesday one week, and another week they may be on a Thursday, Friday. What you want to do is have tools in place that allow for constant communication. So the number one thing is a project management tool. I tend to use a tool called Asana, and I have a page coming up where I'll actually show you the icons of the tools that I'm using so you can look them up. But what I love to have about a project management tool is that instead of giving people a general idea what you want them to do, I really prefer to create individual tasks. So if you have a project, let's say you're doing a marketing launch for a new product, what I will do is I'll go in and create the major tasks. So maybe the major task is um, setting up we just said it for a project launch. Then in my subtask, I may have a couple of tasks that are dedicated to the social media portion of the marketing. I may have a couple of tasks that are dedicated to my email marketing piece of the campaign. I may have a couple of tasks dedicated to maybe a press or some type of media outreach portion of it. And what'll happen is I'll actually put individual tasks for the things that we need to complete. Now, the task is not to make you a task manager. We're not trying to say post these 5 things on Facebook on these days. Instead, I may have something a little bit bigger. One of my projects may be developing the social media approach for this campaign launch. Task number 2, maybe identifying the resources that we need for the social media launch. So, do we need video? Do we need infographics? Do you need graphics, memes? What do you need for that? Step maybe number 3, maybe having our writer or our copywriter or our editor actually draft up some content that our marketer is going to use in the marketing campaign, but she's not or he's not responsible for creating. And what happens now is we're starting to build a list so that everyone in the team, everyone, and including you as the boss, has visibility to what needs to be done and what has to get done. It also allows you to track progress, as well as if you have tasks that are dependent. So maybe you have a 3 or 4 person team. If tasks are dependent, people can see who's working on the task before them and when they should expect to get that information. You can also put due dates in there. If you're using tools like Asana, it will send people reminders of what's coming up or what's going to be due for that week. It will send them reminders if things are past due and so forth. The other thing I like to do is have a tool to allow the team to communicate. One of my favorite tools is a tool called Slack. It's a free tool that you can use. And what it is kind of like having instant messaging within your teams. So it allows you to, in a sense, have quick conversations. If someone's looking for something, hey, can you give me access to that Google Doc so I can go in and make some edits? They can do that in Slack quickly. They don't have to write a full email. They can quickly see if you're online or you're available. Or sometimes what I'll do is I'll post something like that in the instant message stream because I can see that a person's not online. But when they're online, they can quickly see that, hey, I need a quick item or need them to quickly do something for me. The other thing is you can have team meetings. Now, team meetings are something that can be a drain on your budget because you have to pay for everybody in those meetings, and they can be a drain on your time. So what I recommend is being strategic about your team meetings. What I tend to do or what I like to do is either have team member meetings from a standpoint maybe once a week where you bring the whole team together and you have a quick, we kind of call 30-minute meeting where people go around the room and talk about what they're working on, what roadblocks they have, what do they need help with, and what kind of accomplishments they've had for the week. Now, you can do this in a conference call. Everyone dials in and goes around the room, especially if you have a small team. You can get it done in only 30 minutes or less, or you can do it virtually. You can use a tool like Slack, and you can set up an actual channel, which is maybe an update channel or a team update channel. And what you can have people do is go in and post each week, maybe on a Wednesday or something like that, what their accomplishments are, what they're working on, what are their roadblocks, and so forth. So you can actually be more efficient with time. So these are great ways to keep the team connected. It's a great way for people to give each other general updates. All you have to do is put the structure in place. The other thing is reward your team, recognize your team. Make sure people know that when people do great stuff on your team, other team members know about it. So when you have those pages with those team updates, when you're using something like Slack to maybe send out updates and let people know when things are happening in your business, use that same tool to recognize a team member, recognize an accomplishment, and recognize something they've done. And then on the planning side, the key thing here is making sure you keep kind of a list of what's going on with your team. You know, who's on vacation, who has holidays, if people are planning to take days off or not be available, helping people kind of get advance notice on what those things are so that your team can cover for each other. Maybe your social media manager wants to go out of time, gone out of town, or um, is planning a major event, or it's their grandmother's 90th birthday or something like that. So what you want to do is by starting to get the team's kind of key dates and things like that on paper and having them add that information. For us, we tend to add it into Asana. Now, what you can do is have the team prepped and have someone be a backup. Maybe another team member will step in for that week, step in for that weekend, and manage and monitor social media. They don't have to be your social media guru. But they can be a person that has the skills, they can get trained, they can get taught by your social media manager so that they can be the backup for them. And it's a great way to have your team work with each other, and you become less of the person that has to come in when things happen, come in when people go on vacation, and fix everything. The more you can get your team cross-trained on very specific tasks, especially for things like holidays, birthdays, and vacations, you'll become a much more efficient team. All right? So, we talked about building a team, finding some candidates. The last thing we really want to talk about is budgeting. How do you keep it in budget? How do you make it reasonable for your business? And the way to do that is to really set weekly limits. If you're going to pay people on an hourly basis, say, for example, you're bringing somebody on and they are going to be doing your website. They're going to be doing a lot of coding, any type of projects that you need, as well as monitoring your site for uptime and so forth. What you may do is say, okay, this is the hourly rate. At a maximum, I really can't have you go over 10 hours a week or 15 hours a week. So if I give you a project, if I give you something that looks like we're going to be going over that a week, please let me know so we can make an adjustment. And what happens now is instead of projects kind of running out of control, instead of budgets being more than you expected for a project, you're putting kind of a guideline in place for your freelancers, for your employees, so that they know they should manage themselves to those times. A, it makes sense for your budget. And B, what they'll do is they'll start to optimize things. They'll be able to also learn how to estimate projects much better because they understand that they have to work within those parameters. And the reason I keep using examples like 10 hours a week, 15 hours a week, maybe even 5 hours a week, because there's nothing wrong with hiring people for those small amounts of time. A lot of people who are freelancers will work for 4 or 5 different people. And what happens is working for you for 5 or 10 hours a week, when they patch a couple of people together, they're getting to a 40-hour work week. And that's exactly what they work. They like the diversity of work. They like working for different people. Don't think everyone wants a 20-hour or 40-hour or 60-hour week job. Some people want that diversity. Also, some people can work part-time, but they have other obligations. Maybe they're caring for a sick parent. Maybe they have a newborn. And what happens is they have great skills. They're a great employee. It's just that their current responsibilities keep them from maybe doing a traditional 9 to 5. So working for someone like you for 5 hours or 10 hours a week is perfect because while the baby's sleeping or while, someone else comes home to take care of the baby or something like that, or if the baby's young enough, maybe when they're in school, a person can, if they're old enough, excuse me, if your child is in school during the day, maybe the parent can work during the day, but around 3 o'clock they normally have to check out because they're going to be picking up the kid and switching into a different mode. So what happens is that person is really looking for someone that they only work a few hours a week, a few hours a day, because they're actually juggling other personal responsibilities. So don't think you're always getting someone who's fresh out of school or someone with no experience. You can get some amazing people by looking at people from a freelance standpoint. The other thing I like to do is sometimes I like to put a budget together for a project. I like to say, okay, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. This is the budget that we need to work into, and let people agree to doing that project in that budget. I don't mean lowballing people because you want to pay people a fair wage. But what I do mean is sitting down and trying to figure out, okay, I think this job is going to take about 30 hours. I'm going to be paying someone X amount of dollars per hour. If I multiply that out, this is what I think this project investment is going to be. Okay, I've saved up, I have that money. Now I'm hiring someone to complete that project for this amount of money. And for some people, they may get faster than your estimate. And obviously, it'll work in their favor. Some people are going to hit it right on target, and some people might spill over a little bit. But by letting them know up front, a person knows exactly how they need to manage that project and what they need to complete within the correct time. The other thing is create weekly program and project reports. Have a way that every single week a person maybe will shoot you an email and let you know where they've made progress, where they are on the status, what are they working on. We mentioned it in Slack, but if you don't use Slack, you can do it from an email standpoint. And what's great about doing this is this helps you get an idea of where someone is, especially if you're on your budget by project or even in your hourly rate. If someone's kind of completed their hours for the week, then what happens is you're going to say, okay, yep, we made good progress, and that's been a good investment. And that also helps you understand their productivity because not everyone does everything at the same rate. So the more you can understand that, the more visibility you have, the better. And then the last thing I love to do is what we've done recently is we've hired a project manager. This has been such a savings in our business because what the project manager is doing is they're checking to see where tasks are and what's getting done, what's behind, and following up with people. Now, while it is an additional overhead cost, so there is an additional budgetary line item that you have to include. But when you start to have a team of maybe 3 or 4 or 5 people, often having a project manager will take that off of your plate. And what that person can do is just make sure projects are moving along. Make sure someone doesn't think they're waiting for content or information that is available to them. They just didn't realize that that person had finished that step. This person can also ensure if someone's falling behind, they'll catch it. You're going to be busy. You're going to be doing a ton of things, and it's difficult to juggle all those hats. So by having somebody saying, hey, I noticed this person had a couple of tasks, they seem to be missing their deadlines. Either we need to reevaluate the projects and make sure we're not overloading them with work, or we need to meet with that person and talk to them and identify what is slowing them down. Why are they having difficulty with their task? Because sometimes it's really just having that conversation. And because the project manager can actually facilitate that conversation or lead that conversation with that individual and then come back to you and say, well, what I'm finding is they don't have the information they need in a timely basis, so that's why they're running behind. Or this person is really struggling because what they thought the role was and what they're doing is different, so maybe we have a mismatch as far as roles and opportunity and then so forth. So this person can really make sure that you're optimizing your team, and that's why it's super important to consider that, especially as your team gets larger, as you start to be a 4 or 5 people team. A project manager would be a great person to bring in. And when you bring in a project manager, they don't have to be for a ton of hours. You may have them only working 5 hours a week because it's not a highly intensive job where they're going to be completing a ton of tasks. A lot of what they're going to be doing is managing and using your project management system. So because of that, they may not demand a lot of hours. Now, as your business grows, as you have more complicated projects, they may take on a bigger role where they help you assign tasks, update tasks, create tasks. And if that's the case, you may have to bring them on for more hours. But like always, I want you to grow into things. So start on a scalable basis. Start with something reasonable. Start with bringing on people for 5 hours a week and then expanding that as you grow. So as we wrap up for today's webinar, I just want to talk about some of the tools, some of the things that we tend to use in our business, and some of the things that we like to use in our business. And the reason being, or the reason I like to always kind of talk about some of these tools, is because the tools can sometimes get you there faster. So the tools I use is Asana. Asana is my favorite project management tool. I also use Basecamp and Trello. Those work just as well. But I like Asana just because it's a lot more nimble. It's much easier to set up for larger groups. It also has a free aspect to it, so you can use it free if you have a smaller team. I believe it's under 20 people. Grow into to a tool without maybe having the initial cost. Harvest I use or a tool called Toggle that I use for tracking time. If you have a team and you need to be able to track the 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week, or the time they're doing, consider using Harvest. Harvest is more advanced because it brings in the invoicing function so that if you have people working to turn around and invoice clients for, Harvest is a great integration of that. If not, you can look at Toggle because Toggle is a great free tool for you to be able to track time. I also use tools like Bank of America. I just use that as an example. Whatever bank that you use, many of them have bill pay function, and in the bill pay function, you can immediately mail a check to someone. I find that's really great if you have employees that you want to mail checks out to and you almost want to have like a payroll type of feel. What happens is I go in once a month on a specific date. I go in and type in the amount for the individuals. Because I've already preloaded their names and address in the system, all I have to do is type in the amount, hit 3 buttons, and then my bank will actually mail the checks out to those individuals. So it's a great efficient way if you're paying by check. If you're paying by PayPal, obviously you can jump in PayPal and pay them. Another tool I like to use is a tool called Upwork. I use it as a freelance tool. There's freelancer.com out there, but I really prefer Upwork. It's really one of my favorite tools because in Upwork, you can actually pay people as well to a credit card as an example. And instead of having to be really involved in the payment, in a lot of the filing, the 1099s, all that stuff that comes along with hiring a freelancer, Upwork will do it for you. As well as what I like about using Upwork is a great database for finding people. I've been surprised how many people I've found that are even vegans that work in our business that we found through Upwork. So it's really, really a great opportunity where you can find people that share your values or share what you're passionate about. And then I use tools like Skype for meetings so people have a face-to-face approach and they get to kind of have a little bit more of a warm and fuzzy when they're talking to me. They know who they're working with and get that kind of feedback. As well as we have our own job board. At times I will post jobs on our job board. It's jobs at jobs.veganmainstream.com. Anything like Facebook or Twitter, it's vegan jobs. And you can actually post a job for free. I think it's for the first 20 days we do it for free. So if you're looking for a candidate, post on there. It's a great way for you to find people, to find the right candidate, and then from there, walk through a lot of the stuff we talked about tonight. So with that, we're bumping up to the top of the hour. So I'm going to wrap up today's webinar. I hope this has been helpful in helping you identify how to build a team, how to hire people, how to retain them, structure in place, how to make sure you're really hiring when you need somebody, and how to ensure that you have a tool, you have a system in place so you can really create that team environment without breaking the budget. So I thank you so much for joining us tonight. I hope this has been helpful. I love, love, love doing these webinars. If you have any questions, feel free to post them on the page. Hear what your feedback are. What are the things that you've been trying? Some of the things that you've been testing. I know some of you will be watching this as a replay, so feel free to go in there and post your comments and questions later. We do read them. We do visit them after the fact as a way for us to get an idea of how these have been helpful to others. So once again, thank you for joining us for Webinar Wednesday, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.